And we're going to talk a little bit about your future. Who would not want to place a bet on exactly what job you'll be in 12 months? Yeah, because you don't know, do you? And you're here hoping it's going to be a great one. But we are living in a world of increasingly uncertain times. I think you've heard that more and more and more, but there are some very specific ways that that's true. We're going to try to share some ideas now that will be skills and attitudes that you can use throughout not only this year, but hopefully throughout life, so that you can have what life is really meant to be: fulfilling, enjoyable, special, and above all, contributory. You all are, again, what are called the I generation. You grew up digitally connected. And what they call the digital universe, which is the amount of stored information on servers, or what we now call the cloud, is actually increasing at 40% per year. Who here knows somebody that spends quite a bit of time on YouTube? Nobody in this room, but you all have friends, right? It's been estimated that the amount of new content uploaded weekly in YouTube would require 100 years to view. That's a lot of content, and it is only accelerating. And so who can keep up with all this information? The answer is no single individual can. And it's going to continue to grow and grow and grow. The world is changing in terms of its dimensions. Right now there's a very, very hot spot in the Korean Peninsula. There's a lot of words that are flashing back and forth. Sometimes those words become war. We hope it doesn't happen in this case. But interestingly enough, since the year 1990, 32 new nations were established on the earth. 32 new nations. And it is continuing to happen even at an accelerating rate. What happened last year with our allies across the pond? A very unexpected outcome. And that Britain decided we're going to leave the European Union. This is something that was never predicted in any of the opinion polls, and yet it is rocking and rolling what is actually the world's largest economy, which is the European Union. And so it's amazing what an impact that is happening, and it will continue to. In business, this can certainly happen. Who here has ever heard of a company called Netscape? Netscape was a company that created the very first internet browser. And Netscape had more than 90% market share. And when you begin to study markets and market share, you will grow to understand that 90% just about never happens. And when it does, it is dominant and powerful. But here we are about 20 years later, and only one person has even heard of Netscape and no real idea of what they've done. This really has an impact on you for career planning. How many of you know people that work in what is called IT, tech? Well, interestingly enough, what that generally means are internet-based businesses or e-commerce businesses, which have only existed in any practical sense for less than 25 years. About 50% of the jobs that will exist in 20 years are estimated to be in industries that have not yet been invented. So how do you prepare for something that hasn't even been invented yet? It has a big impact on career planning. So the question you may be asking yourself is, what in the world can I do about all this? Am I going to be a leaf caught in the stream, or is there anything we can do? Well, I've got a couple of ideas for you. First of all, I'd recommend you get to know the C.I.A. Now, not the one you're thinking of. They already know everything about you. But instead, it's a convenient way to think about the issues that you will face in life. There are some things that we can absolutely what? Control. So work with me here for just a second. What are some things in your daily existence that you can fully and completely control?
Food.
Food, okay? How much you eat, what you eat, when you eat, yes. And it dominates our thoughts much of the day, but we can learn to control those, okay? What else, even more elementary than that?
When you wake up, when you sleep.
When we wake up, and how we wake up. I believe, for example, that it was a college engineering student that invented the snooze alarm. The snooze alarm is a diabolical device that ensures that you go through the pain of waking up multiple times every morning. And how many of you know people that the night before calculate how many iterations of the snooze alarm they can actually afford before they really have to get up? It's an amazing process. Sometimes people get up in the morning and it's just a quick rebound right back into that bed. If the weather's off, forget about it. So when we get up, when we go to bed, we can control that. What we eat, how much we eat, what we drink, how much we drink. What else can we control in a day?
What we wear.
What we wear. Mm-hmm. What else? A couple of things, big ones.
What we do.
What we do. Do we show up in class? Do we show up in our right mind? Do we show up paying attention? In other words, effort. The amount of effort we put forth is something we can fully control. Nobody else can control that except ourselves. What else involving interpersonal relations? Can we control other people? Well, that's debatable. We've got a big fella here. If there is a small enough human and you have a good grip, you can control them as long as your grip holds out. But those little people are slippery. You know, they get away and suddenly you've lost your ability to control that person. So we cannot control others. But in interpersonal relationships, we've talked a lot this morning about communication. What are some things we can control?
Who we interact with.
How we interact with, who we interact with, what we say. Can we influence others by the things we say? Oh my gosh, absolutely we can. If we form a habit of saying, it's great to see you today. How was your weekend? It's so much better than saying, don't you wish it weren't Monday? For the power of our words impacts how other people feel. So our effort, what we consume, all of those things, it's important, but it's not a huge list. There's a much bigger list of things that are in the I category. These are things we can't control, but we can in fact influence. What's the hugest arena we can influence, although we can't control? Other people, absolutely. But what we can learn to influence is our attitude. And let me share with you a couple of ways we can influence attitude. One of the best ways to influence our attitude is by our own bodily posture. I'll give you an example. A YouTube video that you should watch if you haven't already is by Amy Cuddy, and it's called Fake It Till You Become It. Fake It Till You Become It. Amy Cuddy is a psychologist, so they test everything. And she actually tested whether or not people, by altering their body language, could increase their self-confidence. And she did it the way psychologists do, with saliva swabs, where they would measure hormones and chemicals before and after an event. If you want to be more confident, it takes exactly 2 minutes. First of all, adopt what you might call the Wonder Woman posture. Before you walk into a room, stand this posture, stand tall, stand strong, be as large as you can be for 2 minutes. Your body will actually release testosterone, which increases confidence. If you are in a chair situation, get as large as you can in the chair. Lean back in a power posture. You will increase confidence. If you want to increase cortisol, which leads to all kinds of health issues, problems, stroke, and premature death, get as small as you can. Sit like this. This requires about 2 minutes, and the body will release noticeable amounts of cortisol, which make us feel vulnerable, timid, shy. I can't do it. If you want to feel sadder, you're already sad, walk slowly, slump shoulders, and listen to Adele. Someone like you. But if you want to feel better, stand up taller, walk 25% faster, and listen to The Temptations, good music from Motown era. Because physicality definitely affects our attitudes. Another way to control our attitude is through something called self-talk. Self-talk. How many of you believe we're always talking to ourselves? Unfortunately, we are. We can't help it. I gave a lecture one time in the UK, and this guy says, I don't buy it. And I said, before you said that, did you think it? And he said, yes. And I said, well, there you go. In other words, we cannot avoid talking to ourselves. But what we can learn how to do is how to manage the self-talk. And that doesn't mean that we look ourselves in the mirror in famous Guy Smalley way and say, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. It's not what I'm talking about. What I am saying is that when we make a mistake, be forgiving of ourselves. I screwed that up. What I learned from that is the following. Instead of wallowing in the first part of the statement. So self-talk can help rescue us when we're in a tough situation. But there's a large number of things in the world that we can neither control nor influence, and we just need to accept. What are some examples of things like that?
The weather.
The weather. The weather. Perfect example. You remember reading some Mark Twain stuff? Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer, etc. He had a neighbor that said, you know, Sam, everybody complains about the weather. Nobody ever does anything about it. And isn't it really true? You planned an outing, and all of a sudden it was supposed to be sunny and it's not sunny. And it's like, whoa! Well, you know something? There are things in life that we benefit from complaining about, and there's most things that really aren't. But who here knows people that spend more emotional energy on things they just ought to accept than they do on the C and the I? And many people that get caught up in very bad situations, it's because instead of saying, I can't change this for now, let me focus on what I can. And that's a real wisdom in life. Now, the good thing about that is if we work on what we can control and what we can influence, eventually the things we just need to accept become less important. They don't dominate us as much. And when it becomes powerful enough, you literally can change the world because you've increased your ability in what you can control and what you can influence. And that becomes powerful.